Before this video begins, I would like to give a quick thank you to my Asbantium level patrons Fallon Cortez and Nathan Gibson. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Superheroes. Ever since the Phantom in 1936, these larger-than-life heroes have saved the world time after time in comics, audio plays, TV shows and movies. Of course, these days superheroes are mainly known from like the MCU or the slightly less successful DCEU. With how successful these movies have become, it's hard to imagine a time where legends like Thor, Batman, Spider-Man and Superman were simply drawings in comic books. But way back during the so-called Silver Age of comic books, a new type of superhero was unknowingly born in the form of Doctor Who, a time-travelling eccentric alien hero capable of great feats in his fight against the evil of the universe. And yet, despite these similarities to superheroes, the Doctor never really had a traditional superhero story on screen. However, this would all change in 2016 with the Christmas special The Return of Doctor Mysterio. This is an ambitious Doctor Who story trying to ride on the success of the superhero genre, teaming the Doctor up with the Ghost, or as he's better known, we've got Superman at home. This is a tale of death-defying stunts, sinister alien schemes and blossoming romance. But is it good? Well, as always, that's what I'm here to find out. So grab a cape and try not to squeeze Mr. Huffle, because it's time to take a deep dive into The Return of Doctor Mysterio.
Dr. Mysterio. I'll have that.
As I mentioned in my Husbands of River Song review, Doctor Who showrunner Stephen Moffat initially planned to bow out of the show in 2015 with that special. However, when Chris Chibnall turned out to be unavailable until after Series 10, Moffat agreed to stay, meaning he now had another Christmas special to create during a pretty dry gap year for Doctor Who. One of the first ideas Moffat came up with was the idea of the Doctor meeting a superhero, given that the writer had been a long-time fan of superheroes both before and after their explosion of popularity thanks to The Dark Knight and the MCU. The inspiration for the title, The Return of Doctor Mysterio, is actually really interesting. During Doctor Who's world tour promoting Series 8, the cast stopped at Mexico City. It was here that lead actor Peter Capaldi found out that the show's localized name upon its first transmission in 1968 was Doctor Mysterio, translating to Doctor Mystery. Naturally, this name was fascinating to both Capaldi and Moffat, with the latter thinking Doctor Mysterio sounded like a superhero's name, so he decided it would be the perfect title for his Doctor Who superhero homage. Although I guess the name would be awkward if Rey Mysterio ever decided to get a doctorate. The tone of the episode is immediately established as we open on a dark and rainy New York street. Of course, Moffat chose the setting because of how intrinsically linked it is to comics, being an explicit setting in a lot of Marvel stories and the inspiration for Metropolis and Gotham City in DC stories. I think the New York backdrop looks and works well here, despite them not having the budget to actually film in the city, much like they had done for The Angels Take Manhattan. Instead, filming took place in Bulgaria, where there was a detailed Manhattan backlot, and it looks great in this episode. It has the perfect amount of darkness and grittiness to it. We get taxis, skyscrapers, everything you can think of when the words New York come to mind. It's a very nice looking episode and has some great sets and cinematography. I even love the cheesy flying effects, which are obviously a homage to the old Christopher Reeve Superman movies where he's laying on a green screen. Oh, and also there's a cinema in the background showing a movie called Mind of Evil, which is a reference to the third Doctor story of the same name. A story that coincidentally also dealt with the manipulation of human brains. Nice touch there. We're then introduced to the intrepid young Grant Gordon, who has a mysterious old Scottish man dangling outside of his window. Man, I hate it when that happens. I do love that Grant mistakes the Doctor for Santa Claus. Not only is it a fun joke and a way to establish it being Christmas time, it actually ties into Last Christmas itself, which drew parallels between the Doctor and Santa as mythical, heroic figures. So it's a nice touch, and it's something the episode later revisits as he criticises Grant for leaving Lucy's baby unattended when he's out doing ghost stuff.
No man worthy of the title leaves a baby alone.
It's like the beast below established. The Doctor never interferes in the affairs of other people or planets unless there's children crying. That's why the Doctor is so offended at Grant abandoning Jennifer to do his superhero work, because it goes against his morals. I think the Doctor sees a bit of himself in Grant, which makes it a bit ironic as the Time Lord points out how Grant is always on call and never gives himself time to rest or to sleep, making his life needlessly complicated. It's like, hang on a minute, that's exactly what you do, Doctor. The episode doesn't draw too many more links between the Doctor and being a superhero, which feels like like it would have been the obvious route to go down for an episode like this, but I guess they'd already done comparisons like that in Last Christmas and Robot of Sherwood before that, so a third time would feel a bit too repetitive. Anyway, the reason the Doctor was on Grant's roof is because he wants to equalize the time distortion in New York, which was obviously a major plot point of The Angels Take Manhattan. I think this is a really interesting motivation for him to have, and I always read it as him wanting to return to the Ponds. He's lost his memory of Clara, so the Ponds are the most recent companions he has a proper relationship with, meaning those wounds of losing them open up again, and he's also just lost River in the previous episode, so he's had to say goodbye to two of the most important people in his life, and it makes a lot of sense he'd want to see the Ponds again to try and cope with those losses, to feel like he still has someone. I feel like that's why he needs the Hazandra gemstone to make it work, because it can tune into his desire to see his loved ones again. However, this big fancy junk Christmas tree machine can't work properly because Grant has accidentally swallowed the all-important Hazandra, thinking it was a tablet for his cold, meaning he now has superpowers and can fly. You know, if only paracetamol was that good. Indeed, Grant Gordon, whose name follows the naming conventions of characters like Peter Parker, Bruce Banner, Sue Storm, and Miles Morales, becomes the Super Saiyan Goku. Oh wait, sorry, wrong movie. I'm sorry, Justin Chatwin, I know you've had a decent career, but nobody will ever forgive or forget Dragon Ball Evolution. Anyway, the Ghost is Grant's superhero alter ego, having pretty much every power possible, from super strength to indestructibility and even X-ray vision, which is established in a weird scene as the Doctor catches up with a tween Grant. The whole X-ray vision thing is a standard joke these days, but it feels pretty questionable to have the moment involve kids. That's just a bit creepy to me. Anyway, Justin Chatwin was inspired by Christopher Reeve's portrayal of Superman, combining it with the deep voice of Michael Keaton's Batman, with the Ghost suit reinforcing this kind of combination by having a bit of both heroes. The Ghost is very much the typical superhero, swaggering around with confidence and endless quips, so you never doubt the tone of the story.
Mind if I come in?
But the Ghost's writing and acting does leave a little bit to desire, because Chatwin does amazing as Grant, but not so amazing as the Ghost. You could say this is some sort of meta commentary on Grant not being suited to be a traditional superhero, but I don't think that was intentional. I think it was just a bit of a casting misfire. Despite being a superhero with all sorts of abilities inspired by the comics he reads growing up, adult Grant is a bumbling, dorky nanny hopelessly in love with his friend Lucy Lombard, whose alliterative name is also a reference to comics, this time Lois Lane, the character who directly inspired this one. I do like that the reference does go a little bit deeper, considering the first name comes from Lois's younger sister and the surname comes from one of Lois's colleagues. I just find that kinda cute. Anyway, much like Lois Lane, Lucy is a reporter willing to do anything to get a scoop, even if that means disguising herself as a cleaning lady and sneaking into Harmony Shoal. Unlike a lot of old comic book love interests, Lucy isn't a damsel in distress always needing to be saved because she's incapable. Instead, she's very much a modern character with clear, defined characteristics and motivations. Lucy is headstrong and resourceful, even going toe-to-toe with the Doctor and straight up interrogating him, with the brilliant use of the squeaky toy Mr. Huffle, who's an unsung hero that steals the show. Lucy is a solid character who feels like more than a generic love interest, but the big downside is obviously the fake American accent by actor Charity Wakefield, who is very much English. At least Grant is played by Canadians, so that's a little bit more believable. When it came to this episode, Moffat was inspired mainly by Superman, especially his ability to disguise himself with a simple pair of glasses. There's a really great joke about this early on, as the Doctor genuinely believes he stumbled upon some big secret when reading Grant's comics. Capaldi plays the moment so well, with the Doctor being completely sincere and almost looking like a hurt puppy when he's told that everyone already knows that Superman and Clark Kent are the same people. It's some great delivery by Capaldi and solidifies this episode's ability to show the 12th Doctor in a comedic light, much like the previous special. We get that great moment as he's asking about Spider-Man, with some classic 12th Doctor sarcasm.
He was bitten by a radioactive spider, and guess what happened?
Radiation poisoning, I should think.
Despite Moffat's Superman inspiration, I actually see Grant as more of a Peter Parker style character, someone who has all this confidence as a superhero, but as a regular person he's essentially a loser. Indeed, director Ed Bazalgette saw a lot of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies in Moffat's script, the director viewing the relationship between Grant and Lucy as similar to Peter Parker and Mary Jane in that 2002 movie. Grant just can't get the girl, playing second fiddle first to his best friend and then to his own alter ego as Lucy falls for the Ghost. There are some strong parallels there which Moffat wanted to emphasise because he liked the strange romantic dynamics created by superhero media. I feel like a really good example of this is the phone call scene, where the Ghost calls Lucy and we get this comic panel style split screen showing the three characters during the conversation. Grant and Lucy are also a bit like Rory and Amy in a sense, two people who have known each other since they were kids, with a bumbling awkward goofball longing for a smart and sassy friend who seems completely oblivious of his feelings despite him being her perfect guy. Lucy even gets jealous of Grant saying he has a date, Lucy, despite her not knowing why and actually being jealous of herself without realising. It's complicated, but a great indication of Lucy having deeper feelings towards the loyal, mild-mannered Grant. Every good superhero needs a supervillain.
Brains with minds of their own. No one will believe that. This is America.
Doctor Who had done a supervillain origin story before in the Lazarus Experiment, but this time things are a lot more conventional, with the villainous Harmony Shoal, who had appeared in the previous Christmas special. I really like Harmony Shoal, they're the perfect kind of antagonist for this story. Their company is kind of like Oscorp, this big multinational corporation run by the antagonist, with headquarters in, you guessed it, Manhattan. Also, the big globe on top of the Harmony Shoal building is obviously a reference to the Daily Planet, where Clark Kent and Lois Lane worked. Harmony Shoal is run by Mr. Brock, who is initially a human until he's killed and his body is stolen by these evil brains. There's some excellent implied body horror as the surgeons arrive to cut his head open and replace it with one of these aliens. I love this scene, all these creepy brains in blue jars and the lighting building such an unsettling atmosphere. You have Dr. Sim acting all creepy and insisting Mr. Brock tap the glass, only for the brain to have eyes, which is a delightfully eerie visual. It's very super villainy, and Dr. Sim even has some comic book style one-liners to help reinforce the tone of the episode.
I had a change of mind.
I really enjoy the moment where the villains are discussing the earlier events, scanning CCTV footage only for this to happen.
Oh, I'm talking to you live!
This is the classic midpoint villain parlay, where our hero confronts the evil villains and offers them the chance to stop now before he has to fight them. It's a good scene, with Capaldi delivering this great dark speech as 12 threatens Harmony Shoal, warning them of his track record of stopping invasions like this before, how the many previous invaders all lost, burned and ran because of him, showing that inner warrior we've seen so many times before.
That's who I am.
The Doctor discovers Harmony Shoal has a big spaceship in orbit, which has a very solid interior look, all the water dripping to make it look abandoned and creepy, although Nardole isn't impressed.
Bit rubbish, isn't it?
Indeed, the Return of Doctor Mysterio sees the reintroduction of Nardole, who we last saw as a decapitated head inside a robot body. It's implied that the Doctor saved Nardole after saying goodbye to River, because he doesn't want to be lonely. After all, we've seen how travelling alone can affect the Doctor, making him lose track of his morality, no longer having a tether to humanity. Nardole therefore is meant to be the Doctor's morality, his conscience, so he gets a bigger focus here and almost nannies our hero, which is, ironic because of Grant, along with sitting there playing with baby toys and just generally being a vibe.
This seems nice.
Nardole can even somewhat pilot the TARDIS now, although it's mainly trial and error, as he winds up ruling Constantinople on his way to pick up the Doctor. Yeah, I hate it when that happens. Peter Capaldi and Matt Lucas have absolutely sublime comedic chemistry, and they have great interplay as they bicker, Nardole constantly lecturing the Doctor and correcting him on everything.
I glued your head back on. You should have a little bit more respect.
Lucy becomes infatuated with the ghost, so they have a date on her rooftop. This is where the episode sags a little, this awkward rom-com aspect. I understand why it's there, it's just a bit slow and, drags for me. Lucy wants to know everything about the ghost, and it leads to a bit of cringe comedy. However, the main purpose of this dinner is to have Lucy finally realise her feelings for Grant, the penny dropping as she now understands just how much he does for her, and how much she really does care for him despite him just being her nanny.
Grant. The perfect name. The man I take for granted.
You do feel a bit bad for Grant as he tries to get Lucy to see he is the ghost, only for her to not look at him, so he ends up putting the mask back on because the confidence drains from him, especially after she praises Grant for never telling her a lie. And, this is a pretty big lie. But Lucy isn't the only one that wants the ghost's body, because Harmony Shoal wants to put one of their brains inside him for obvious reasons. However, their wider plan is to fake an alien attack, which is all very Slitheen, engineering a false flag alien spaceship crash to send the population into panic and force all the world leaders to trust Harmony Shoal, whose buildings can withstand any explosions.
When the world is in danger, come hide with us.
I love this idea. It's very evil and conspiratorial. Even the Doctor can admit it's a good plan, although his own plan is a little bit more radical, deciding to start the attack earlier than Harmony Shoal planned, making them panic. It's incredibly risky, but then again, when isn't the Doctor? Although in all his bravado, he kind of forgot they can't actually get to the TARDIS. Oops.
You are completely out of your mind! How is that news to anyone?
Of course, the crashing spaceship climax of this story does mirror the similar climax of Husbands of River Song, except this time the Doctor doesn't have the TARDIS to save him. Instead, he has to rely on Grant, who is currently being held hostage as bait for himself. I feel like it's a very triumphant ending as Grant stops the impact, again bringing up parallels to Superman and the Raimi Spider-Man movies. A crowd of onlookers staring up in awe and wonder at this impossible visual. A man holding back an entire spaceship from destroying the city. It's an epic crescendo of drama and suspense, sequence, with some great cinematic shots punctuating the moment. Grant saves the world, stops the bad guys, and finally he gets the girl, with Lucy putting his glasses on him to punctuate how much she loves and values the real man, not just because he's the ghost. It's very sweet and fulfilling, paying off that romance in a nice way. And then the Doctor shows up now that he's not having to worry about, a crashing spaceship.
You think this is over? Yeah.
I really love this moment so much, just absolutely shutting the villains down. It's so great to see the villains rendered useless like this, not even having the chance to give their big vengeance speech. The Doctor simply doesn't care. He's got other things to worry about, so he doesn't take Mr. Brock seriously and couldn't care less about his threats, which is really fun. However, my favourite thing about this ending is when units swarm the Harmony Shoal headquarters, finding the vacant body of Dr. Sim with, creepy eyes missing, since he's hopped into the body of a unit soldier. I've mentioned before that this is such a good tease for a third story in the Harmony Shoal narrative. This idea of the villains infiltrating UNIT itself in a similar way that the Grand Serpent would later do in Flux. I have no idea whether they actually planned to follow this up or whether it was just a reference to superhero media's own sequel baiting, but it's just a brilliant moment that could have led to an even better story involving UNIT as an organisation being manipulated on every level. At the end, Grant vows to retire the Ghost, the Doctor once again remembering his loss of River and trying to escape the situation because of his emotions.
Things end. That's all.
Capaldi does such a great job with this scene, adding so much emotion to 12's character here. The whole episode, the Doctor is still upset and torn apart after losing River, something hinted at early on when Grant mentions knowing Lucy for 24 years, obviously bringing back painful memories of the Doctor and River's 24 years on Beryllium before her death in the library. Even with those 24 years to say goodbye to her, the Doctor is still emotional about how powerless he was, not being able to keep her alive because you can't postpone fate forever, like he learned in Hellbent.
Everything ends. And it's always sad.
Watching this romance blossom reminds the Doctor of what he could never have. His relationship with River was never normal. He never got to feel the things Grant and Lucy get to feel for each other because his time with River was so non-linear and chaotic. And yet, despite how emotional 12 is at these memories and the reminder of his loss, he still feels a sense of bittersweet optimism in Grant and Lucy's happy ending, understanding what they have is special and wanting them to treasure every moment they have together because nothing lasts forever.
But everything begins again too. And that's always happy.
The Return of Doctor Mysterio is not a popular episode. It's probably considered the weakest 12th Doctor Christmas special, but I feel like its reputation is a bit too harsh. There's genuinely a lot to like about this episode. It's very sincere in its homage to the superhero genre, with lots of references and clear inspiration from things like Superman and the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films. There's a great atmosphere in the episode, and the Doctor and Ardell are a fantastic comedy duo bickering their way through the adventure. Harmony Shoal are fantastic villains with lots of creepy visuals and a truly sinister master plan tapping into false flag conspiracy theories. The episode has some great shots, and the alien gemstone is a really strong justification for a superhero existing in this universe. The Ghost has some good design elements, but there are definitely some issues with the writing and the acting of Grant and Lucy. I do appreciate the parallels to other superhero couples, but the accent of Lucy and the acting of the Ghosts do drag the episode down a bit. Overall, as controversial as it is, I'm giving The Return of Doctor Mysterio a B rank on the Series 9 tier list and the Specials tier list. I genuinely do enjoy it more than the Husbands of River song. I feel like it has more of a purpose and more consistency throughout, not just relying on a heartbreaking emotional ending to make it good. There's some real heart to The Return of Doctor Mysterio, such a loving homage to a simpler time of superhero media rather than just the MCU, although I understand how the overexposure of movies at the time would make it harder to like this story. I mean, hell, I haven't even liked a superhero movie in years. Even so, I think The Return of Doctor Mysterio is a bit misunderstood and unfairly derided. But what do you think? Was I too easy on it, or does it deserve its reputation after all? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time. Merry Christmas. And I'd just like to give an extra special thank you to my Asbantium level patrons, Fallon Cortez and Nathan Gibson, my Diamond level patron, Glenna Clark, my Platinum level patrons, Matthew Burns and Maximilian Foreman, and all my Gold level patrons, Boots, Daniel Shillito, Franz Orn aka Line Vortex, Robert Hock, and Tom Azar. Thank you so much for your support.